Not so funny when you're for the chop, is it? I snarled. Do you know what we humans do to kings and emperors and dictators who get on the wrong side of their people? No. Screamed the great leader desperately. No, I don't. Well, either they retire and let democracy reign or they die. I explained loudly. I am no hero, oh great leader. I am no martyr. I am not special. I am just one of oh so many people who does not like being eaten alive and will gladly pay the ultimate price to end that suffering. The great leader was erect now. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Please. Just let me live. Okay. I said quietly. Do you abdicate? What? Screamed the great leader, not comprehending. You may live if you cease to be leader. I cried. Leave the throne and live. The great leader stared at me and understood now, really understood. Now he was brave. He swallowed and calmed his nerves, then said loudly and calmly, no. No, I will not concede political power to avoid my death. What precedent would that set? To have my species descend into a blood-thirsty war for power is not worth my life. I shrugged. Viva la revolution. No, said a voice beside me, a very familiar voice. Her hands grabbed my arms and she said, look me in the eyes, Stephen. Look me in the eyes and know that I don't want him to die, and I especially don't want you to kill him. Sammy stood before me. She pleaded with me not to kill the monstrous head of the Contravoxai machine. I fancy the fuck out of you, okay? Said Sammy desperately. It's why I saved your life. Maybe I was wrong, maybe I should have let you die. If you know anything about me, if you care the slightest iota about me, you won't kill the man who makes me so very happy. He eats you alive. I said incredulously. And I like it. She said earnestly. Please, just, don't kill him. Let him live for me. The great leader wafted a gentle tentacle down to her shoulder. Oh, Sammy. You don't have to do this. I wanted you to live. Said Sammy seriously. I wanted you to love me, I never wanted you to kill anyone. Fuck. I said quietly. Sammy, I don't get to get out of this alive, you know? You just don't recover from trying to assassinate a political leader. I know. Said Sammy with a nod. I saved your life and clearly I was wrong too. Will you die for me now? I tried to ignore her, tried to focus on the great leader, but how could I shoot dead a noble man who was willing to die for political stability, a man who was a wreck that had begged for mercy, and a man that the love of my life would rather I was dead than that I hurt. Remember me. I said, then I cried out, remember me. I lowered the gun and walked away, and then I was torn apart by tentacles and felt myself suffocate in burning acid. Then I felt nothing and saw nothing until consciousness itself ceased to be. I woke up to find myself naked on the floor of my Segat with Lisa beside me. Charlotte was looking over us. I laughed bitterly. Oh, I cocked that up. Charlotte said with a rather embarrassed tone of voice. I had to eat you to save your life. I had to make it look authentic. I sighed. It's fine. And then I said, actually, this is a time machine, so fuck it, eat me. Charlotte recoiled. Are you all right? Sammy just told me she would rather I was dead than the great leader. I said with a scowl. Bit of a bruised ego, but fuck it, if Lisa can do it, if Sammy can do it, if you want me to do it, then fuck it, let's do it. Charlotte squeaked with excitement and her tentacles encircled, then scooped me up and lifted me to the vertical. So? I asked. How does this work? You trust me and look pretty as I have my fun. She said sweetly. But I'll try to be quick as it's your first time. And then you have Lisa for dessert, I asked. Charlotte chuckled and I felt her tentacles tighten about me, then. Pop. Charlotte showed me my severed hands and feet. There, now that wasn't so bad, was it? She tipped my hands and feet into her mouth and moaned. Very nice. Now we're going to the lower arms and lower legs. This will hurt, a lot, but that's... well, the others seem to like it. So then the pressure started on my elbows, building quickly as I could feel bones cracking, I wanted to scream out because it was just so unbearable, and then I understood. As the pain crossed some intangible threshold, I started to feel it as something sexual, a building erotic pressure. Painful, yes, always painful, but the pain was surpassed and muted. I started moaning with delight. Then, snap. Charlotte held my lower arms and lower legs before me and said. Now that reaction was certainly rather different. Yes, I said. I'm rather afraid I liked that quite a lot. Okay, said Charlotte with carefully muted excitement before pouring my lower arms and lower legs into her mouth and savoring the taste. Oh yes, I certainly like you. This one I will try to make painful, seeing as you seem to like it. I swallowed, then nodded. My arms and legs were wrenched from their sockets and torn from my flesh as I cried out in ecstasy. Charlotte giggled. I think we may have a convert here. This time though she just ate what was left of my arms and legs without comment or display. What happens next? I asked. Dessert, she said with a chuckle. I wondered what she meant, then I understood as her tentacles swarmed me. My eyes were plucked out and my ears were torn off. My tongue, lower jaw and throat were ripped out. My liver, kidneys, lungs and appendix were pulled from my chest. Even my genitals were taken. It was an overwhelming experience and by a long way painful enough for my sylph brain to reinterpret the experience as a deeply pleasurable and erotic one. I woke in a much similar position, on the floor of the Sagat beside Lisa, with Charlotte looking over us. How do you feel? Asked Charlotte softly. Like I wanna do that again, I said with barely restrained excitement in my voice before I added. Just to check, you know? Charlotte chuckled. All right, just to check, I think I might like to put her on a marinade and you in a soup. Okay, I said slowly. Where are you going to find the facilities to do that? My kitchen, said Charlotte cheerfully. We are in a Sagat after all. So Charlotte led me and Lisa into her kitchen. She instructed me to climb into a pot that she filled with water and left to boil on a suitably sized hob while she saw to Lisa. I found myself laughing at how my life kept getting weirder and weirder until Charlotte came in the room and pulled out my tongue to silence me. She chopped strange fruit, veg and herbs to add to the soup, then stabbed me a few times to get my blood flowing into the soup. She ate me in silence and it was one of the most surreal yet pleasurable experiences I had to that point experienced. 5 minutes ago I was leading a revolution and now here I was in a pot of soup on a kitchen table, bleeding and being slowly eaten alive as Charlotte carved gobbets of meat from my legs, torso and arms. Finally Charlotte finished eating what she could of me and left me to sit in the pot and recover as she went to devour the marinaded Lisa. It was all so dull. Just sitting a pot of slowly cooling soup, waiting to heal. Once Charlotte had finished devouring Lisa, she carried the remains of us into the Sagat and disappeared into the bowels of the ship. She returned with a smart suit for me and a short skirt and shirt for Lisa. Charlotte yawned and asked, "So do you think you like being eaten then?" My tongue had regrown, so I said, "Yeah, this bit's a bit boring but the actual eating is fun." "Okay," said Charlotte gently. "Then maybe we can do this again sometime? Only next time I'll find us a show to watch while you heal." Hours passed until I and Lisa had finally recovered enough to have a shower and get dressed. Charlotte parked the Sagat and we got out. I walked out the Sagat to find David eating soup as Sammy sat beside him wearing a gorgeous dress. Carla sat to his other side in a matching but different colored dress. Lisa ran to Carla. I approached Sammy. Charlotte introduced herself to David. "Sammy, hi," I said. Sammy hugged me and whispered, "SH. Don't speak, just hold me." So I held her and I felt overjoyed to have her so close, to know that she, my Sammy, still liked me. Carla and Lisa were already making out. Charlotte said, "So, me and Steve, we're sort of tight you know, and Lisa is just adorable but they sort of need their other halves, so I wondered how you felt about getting to know each other." David chuckled and shook tentacles with Charlotte. "Tell you what? Things are kind of hairy right now. If you've got a Segat, we could find somewhere nice to get away to, then have a nicer romantic meal of these couples you seem to care about." Charlotte chuckled. Sounds weirdly sweet, that. Then she was hit by a bolt of realization. We could make it a triple date. Let them each share a romantic meal together before, or even as we have a romantic meal of them. David smirked. That is one wicked sense of humor you've got there. You're on. Helga came to gloat. Your evolution failed, Steve, and what's more, that girl and boy you thought you saved have just been eaten by David. Nah, said David as he lifted Gerald and Annabelle's heads and torsos from his soup. They're fine. Why? Asked Helga. You didn't know? I did, said Sammy gleefully. I never gave up on you, Steve. I always knew that you would return for me. That you would bring the Vligeri the cure. Except you did give up on him, said Helga gleefully. Your preference to see Steve dead instead of the great leader is why the great leader still lives. Or, said Sammy sweetly, you were willing to die and abandon revolution for that M.E.? I nodded, then said, sort of discovered you've got a point too, since I like being eaten. Charlotte helped me find out. Sammy grinned. Oh, we must get eaten together, we simply must. I laughed. All right, but first I have to tell you something. I think I love you. Sammy chuckled. I know, and I love you, always have. You just didn't ask. Eliza entered with Fiora and Roxy. Helga stared at them. They're dead. What are they doing alive? Eliza shrugged. What matters is that they belong to us now, and they will gladly be eaten by any passing Contravoxai. Really? Asked Helga curiously. Really, said Eliza cheerfully before she reached out for Roxy by way of demonstration and casually cut her arms and legs off in turn, then placed them on the bar. Roxy sighed. Eliza said, here, pluck out her eyes. She's fine with it. Helga tentatively reached out with a knife and removed Roxy's eyes, then said, would you look at that, we'll make a fortune off her. And from Fiora, and Gerald and Annabelle and at least 8 others, said Eliza with a grin. Helga grinned. We're rich. Fiora approached us and said, look, I know it didn't go as well as we wanted, but the albino sylph squirrels and were shark blood is in circulation now, plus we owe you our lives, so anytime you want us, just ask. Actually, said Charlotte thoughtfully, you and Roxy are a couple, aren't you? How do you feel about joining us for a romantic meal of couples having romantic meals? Roxy asked. Are you going to do anything with my arms and legs, because I'm fairly certain they will reattach? Merle said. If there's arms and legs going begging, I am feeling a bit peckish after all that exertion. Eliza chuckled. Of course she chucked Merle Roxy's arms and legs. Merle eagerly snatched them up and devoured them before he approached the bar. And are those her eyes? Eliza nodded. Take them. Why, thank you, said Merle as he snatched up Roxy's eyes. He asked, is there any chance you could put her in a broth for me? Seems a shame to waste the rest of her. For you, Merle, anything, said Helga cheerfully as she scooped up Roxy. Merle turned to address me. I know, I fucked up, I said quietly. Au contraire, my dear boy, you've quite won us the revolution, said Merle cheerfully. How? I fucked it all up. I nearly got Lisa killed, nearly got myself killed, and the political structure continues, I said irritably. Merle shook his head. If you had killed him, or even if he'd abdicated at the barrel of a gun, all you would have done is create a power vacuum which could well be filled by someone worse. Instead you showed that the great leader is not invulnerable, you showed that humans and Vligeri are not without strength, and you showed that it is the morsels that have the power. The great Sammy, the epitome of playing with your food, she saved the great leader's life, and not with violence but words. And I will continue the revolution itself by arming the populace with the immortality granted by being sylph sharks, and this too shall get the revolution among the lower Contravoxai classes going, as the poor and the needy and have the food to eat and fight back. The structure will be reformed. Helga returned with a thick broth made from Roxy. Here you go, Merle. Oh fantastic, said Merle as he accepted the broth. Fiora looked sadly at her best friend and lover. Jealous? Asked Merle curiously. Just a bit, said Fiora awkwardly. Don't like not being with her, you know. Then I shall have to make sure I eat you afterwards, said Merle with a chuckle. Charlotte sighed. Oh, you know, I think we might have to cut our losses with Fiora and Roxy for now. David nodded, then turned to Sammy and asked, me and Charlotte here are thinking of having a romantic meal so we might get to know each other, wondered if you and Stevie Boy would mind being the main. Sammy looked to me. What do you think? I shrugged. A Victorian adventuress suddenly stood beside me and said, yes, what do you think of being eaten alive with your dear precious, Sammy? You're so wretchedly cute together it makes me want to vomit. You know he elected to have himself made into a toy, so that all the little toy Sammys wouldn't have to be alone. Despicable bastard. Sammy snorted, then said, that is actually rather unbelievably sweet. I shrugged. You're here for your payment, aren't you? The Bamkirsch nodded. However could you guess? Of course I want my fucking payment, so pay up, fucker. Here you are, I said as I indicated Fiora and the broth. Fiora and Roxy, perfect toys. The Bamkirsch was taken aback. You're paying me double? I shrugged. They're cute together. The Bamkirsch looked at them and sucked her teeth, then said, yes, they sort of are, aren't they? All right, I'll have to owe you. I nodded. Fine by me. Then she vanished. Actually, that reminds me of something, I said, and I pulled a gun out of my pocket and shot Helga between the eyes. Helga blinked and shook her head, then said, thank you. Eliza looked at me nervously. Helga looked into Eliza's eyes and said, he's just given me the most wondrous power over you, dear, the knowledge to control your abilities. Oh, said Eliza with nervous excitement. So what happens now? You will have to be very obedient, said Helga as she cleared the hair from Eliza's face. Oh, I am sure, said Eliza with a smirk. You might even have to discipline me if I get things wrong? Helga smiled. Eliza returned the smile. Then David and Charlotte led me, Sammy, Lisa and Carla away. On a distant planet orbiting a binary star system, a table and chairs had been set out in an extension of the Sagat life support force field under the stars. Lisa and Carla were appetizers, and to accommodate their position they ate nouveau cuisine before David and Charlotte chowed down on them. Me and Sammy had more time for our meal, but as the main we had to conduct it while seated in mashed potato and gravy and being slowly baked courtesy of a fancy hob. We ate pizza because fuck fancy, we had saved each other's lives. When we woke the next day, Charlotte informed me that there was still one task left to perform. Tipton, West Midlands, Great Britain, Earth, 5 years before the Contravoxai invaded. Stephen Banks was having an argument with his best friend about him being a crazy loser conspiracy theorist scrounger. The loser's name is Lucas Crichton. Stephen said, "Look, why can't you just be normal?" "Because I'm not," said Lucas. "Then take your fucking meds," said Stephen. "I am," said Lucas. "But you can't drug someone normal." "Oh, you're just not trying hard enough," said Stephen, and he walked off. "Well, fuck you then," said Lucas as he gave his friend 2 middle fingers before ascending a fire escape outside a building. He climbed to the top and I was there to meet him. "How did you beat me here?" he asked curiously. "I time traveled," I said casually. "Look, Lucas, I'm a dick, yeah? A complete stonking tool. I'm a fucking hedge fund manager, for Christ's sake. I am a class A bellend, but you ain't. You don't have to do this. I'm sorry. You're you and I should never have tried to make you into anything different. I love you, man." Lucas smirked. "You're punking me, ain't you? This is just like that time you pretended to come out to me so you could call me an SJW for not being a twat to you about it." "Yeah, well, if it's any consolation, I'm fairly certain I got my just desserts," I said quietly. You know what's the worst thing? Asked Lucas. You are my best friend and you are a complete dick to me. I don't get many options, so I just smile and accept it. Good old Stevie and his funny japes. Like that time you made me believe I was dying of cancer, remember that? You actually kept it up 5 months after I was supposed to have died? I sighed. Yeah, sorry. Point is, mate, I do actually sort of love you in a very real way. I'm just a right prick about it. Yeah. Well. That's not good enough anymore, said Lucas angrily. Fuck off. All right, I said quietly. I'm going. Can't bear to watch this anyway. Then I got up and left. Alone on the rooftop, Lucas cried out. Listen, aliens and eldritch things and all you other zombies, I am not going to die. I am going to throw myself off this roof and then something truly amazing is going to happen because I am not suicidal. I'm perfectly sane. I'm perfectly normal. I am just going to leap off this roof and wake up somewhere magical. Then Lucas ran off the roof and fell. Right through the open door of a red British post box and into a pool large enough for a great white shark to comfortably roam. He drowned trying to find his way to air. Lucas woke with a splutter on the floor of the central control room. I held Sammy for emotional support. David and Charlotte watched with nervous interest and Lisa and Carla watched with curiosity. Lucas sat up and asked, "Where am I?" "Tell me, what do you know of quantum immortality?" I asked. Lucas got to his feet and surmised. It's the theory that states that since you can only experience universes in which you are alive, if you were to riddle yourself with nanotech that automatically killed you given any scenario less than ideal, you would only experience the ideal scenario. I nodded. Very good summary. That's you. Who are all these people? Asked Lucas. Well, those T-wo are polyamorous toys who love to be eaten alive. I said of Lisa and Carla. This is the love of my life. I said of Sammy. And those two are tentacled man-eating aliens called Contravoxai. I said of David and Charlotte. Lucas nodded. May I see a demonstration? Oh, I think we can do that, I said. Lisa giggled and took Carla's hand. Love you later, honey. Carla nodded. You too, sweetie. Then David lifted Carla up into the air and casually devoured her as Charlotte cheerily devoured Lisa. No kidding, said Lucas, impressed. And they're not dead? We recover in a day or two, I said. We? He asked. See you soon, sweetie, said Sammy as David and Charlotte lifted her into the air and devoured her between the pair of them. Wow, said Lucas. Okay, I believe you, so what now? I went to the controls and said, you are the smartest man I know and my best mate, well before all this happened, and that makes you uniquely qualified to travel the stars. Lucas asked, are you trippin', mate? I shook my head. You'll understand, I know you'll understand because you already have. Then we landed and I stepped out with Lucas and the Logic Lance. Charlotte greeted us. Steve, you're back and so soon? Yes, I said. But only to deliver this man into your care. He is to become a Sagat, you understand, my Sagat. Disable his camouflage circuitry so his exterior remains that of a British red post box. I will arrive when he is ready to be piloted and I will know nothing of this, see that it stays that way. Lucas stared at me. You're going to turn me into some kind of ship, aren't you? Is that a problem? I asked. I don't know, said Lucas. Then I think it's probably not a problem, I said. Fair enough, said Lucas. Until we meet again, old chum. I strode back into my Sagat and the welcoming tentacles of David and Charlotte. I woke the next morning on the floor of the Sagat. I showered and got dressed in my suit, then I re-enabled the camouflage circuitry and installed the hologram software. As soon as it had finished installing, a hologram of Lucas appeared beside me and said, one last stop, friend, then you can settle down for a bit. I know, I said. I just She hurt me so much, you know. Lucas nodded. Not exactly a stranger to that concept, yeah, but you need to do it. The great leader had gone into hiding with his personal banquet in tow, and that meant he was well clear of the no materialization zone. Sammy lay awake as the others slept, just staring into space. Then a trapdoor appeared before her. I crawled out of it. You're alive? Sammy said, utterly surprised. But I watched you die. My Contravoxai friend Charlotte is very skilled at making friendly munchings seem terrifyingly fatal, I explained. And for what it's worth, I now understand why you want to stay with the great leader, because I like being eaten too now. Oh, said Sammy as she pulled me close. My poor baby. You should stay. I'm sure the leader will forgive you, especially when you let him eat you. Well, that's handy, I said as I exposed my chest. Sammy, I love you. Each and every version of you. Where you go, I go. This me can't stay with you because this me has a different Sammy that he's very fond of, but I only have that Sammy because you decided to save my life and gave me your heart, so this is me returning the favor. I sliced open my chest and pulled out my human heart. I cut it free and handed the still beating heart to Sammy. Look after him and he will look after you. Sammy held my heart in her hands and said, I will treasure him always. Enjoy your Sammy, Steve. She's a very lucky girl. I know, I said, and I left through the trapdoor again. My Sammy was waiting for me in the Segat control room with the hologram of Lucas. Is it done? She asked. Will she have a version of you to love? I nodded. Sammy flung her arms around me and kissed my neck. I think you should head to Anthony's, said Lucas gently. Your baby's having a baby. Sammy stared at him. We materialized and exited the Segat in time to watch Lucy's egg hatch. It's a girl, announced Lucas. Congratulations. Egret and Anthony were holding each other as Amy and Lucy watched the hatching together. Lucy looked up at me and said, Thanks for making it. What happened? Asked Egret. Oh, that's a long story, I said, but you might want to get the deep fat fryer on. We've got 2 Contravoxai back there, and it's not just Lisa who likes a good eating anymore. Sammy grinned and squeezed my hand. You're a grandmaster. Lisa and Carlo exited. Right, I think I best get cooking, said Egret. Come on girls, let's get you deep fried as soon as possible. Deep fried? Asked Carla. Oh, it's fantastic, said Lisa as she led the way. Sammy said, a deep fry does sound like fun. Do you think you'll be okay on your own for a bit? Of course, I said sweetly. Go have fun. Sammy ran off after Lisa, Carla, and Egret. I decided to stay with Lucy and Amy and the hatchling for a bit, but I heard Lucas approach Anthony and ask, what do you do when the omniscience gets a bit squick, like say, for example, totally hypothetically, 2 Contravoxai were getting jiggy with it, right in front of your senses? Anthony chuckled. Oh, I may have some particularly rare narcotics that can help, if you would like to follow me. Lucas followed Anthony. I was left alone with Lucy and Amy, so I asked what happened to the toys. You arrived, said Amy with a smirk. Your toy, I mean. You and Sammy go everywhere together and Lisa and Carla go with you. It's quite sickening really. Only Lucy and Amy are free to actually be toys that are played with now. Everyone else is too full of life. I nodded. Interesting. Lucy asked. So how long are you going to stay here then? I shrugged. We've got a ship that can travel in time and things that can freeze time. No reason we couldn't continue the old system and still travel. I guess we'll see how it goes. The end. This chronicle is dedicated to the memory of Earth that was and my small impact on Contravoxai/Fligeri relations. I know some bits might seem a bit needless. Why graphic for a chronicle of events, but it is the story of the events themselves that delivers the weight by which people's minds are charged. The facts on their own without the context of detail and emotion are meaningless, or at least that's my perspective. I am 80 now, but I still look in my early 30s thanks to the whole were shark thing. The revolution succeeded, more or less, as we now have an elected parliament with the great leader relegated to performing ceremonial functions alone. All sapient cattle including humans and vligeri now have the right to say no to an offer of being eaten and the further right to choose whether they wish to be eaten as a mortal or as a were shark. Eliza and Helga's little underground pub is now a world-famous eating establishment with Lucy, Amy, Fiora, Roxy, Gerald and Annabelle among the top dishes, with new dishes being recruited all the time. They are now paid a wage per customer served, though they regularly offer themselves to homeless Contravoxai as an act of charity, with Fiora and Roxy being regular servings at a nearby soup kitchen. Eliza is now nearly as powerful as Anthony but still plays the subservient to Helga's vampiricness. Lisa and Carlo are now married but remain as polyamorous and keen to be devoured as ever. Sammy and I have been married 40 years now and still enjoy being a good romantic meal together. David and Charlotte do not believe in marriage, but they have been together and devouring us almost every day since they began. On their anniversary every year they book tables for me and Sammy, Lisa and Carla, Fiora and Roxy and Gerald and Annabelle, then have a long romantic dinner of us as the different courses. The Bamkirsch has started selling her toys here and is making a fortune. My pet Lucy's hatchling was named Jessica and she is a trained lawyer but fell for a Contravoxai CEO, so now she works in a patent office. It is understood that Jessica's relationship with the CEO is not nearly as simply described as romantic partners or culinary partners, but we love her regardless of her proclivities. The human child of Amy was named Liera, but he came out as transgender at 10 and since goes by Liam. He's a politician pushing for the rights of the Contravoxai lower classes. 10 years ago he got a law passed requiring all Contravoxai to be given access to the same transgender therapies and help as vligeri when formerly Contravoxai would have to pay to get treatment. Lucas has spent a lot of his time searching for technologically advanced extraterrestrial life and is slowly upgrading high-S abilities. Eliza and Anthony have both helped him a great deal in this capacity. It is understood that he has a somewhat physical relationship with Anthony's Sagat, and certainly shares a deep spiritual connection with her. Earth that was, is now well and truly gone, but enough people survived to impact the vligeri culture. Whether this is a good thing or bad thing has yet to be seen.